Well, hello. Ion here with episode 5 of Kinaspol. And thankfully this episode exists because there was a good chance it wouldn't have. Cities Skylines recently updated the game, and it broke a lot of people's saves, including my own. But, thankfully, I managed to save it, and here we are. In today's episode, we're going to get to a point where we can actually start moving forward in time, talking about the story of Kinaspol and watching it grow and expand. The last few things we need to do, and what we're going to hopefully accomplish today, is we're going to get a stable, a graveyard, a couple more houses, and a horse track to hold some races at. And horse track being said, and horse races, you'll have a chance to actually participate a little bit in the upcoming races. So stay tuned for that. And without further ado, on to the video. So first things first, we're going to build the racetrack real close to town, in between the port and the town itself, sort of filling in that little empty space we got there. I would like to pretend that I always had this in mind, and that was why I was reserving that empty space. I'll be real. It was more of just, this fits just so perfectly in this space, and I got lucky. But I can claim it, whatever. Anyways, we're not going to talk too much about the racetrack at the moment. I actually want to talk about the Baron, because no one's actually offered any ideas for the Baron, so I am going to take that as a privilege, or at least the viewers silently saying that I can go ahead and tell you all about the character I came up with. And I came up with Baron Kinovich Friedrich Mikhailovich, which I am sure, like I'm 900% sure that I've butchered the hell out of that pronunciation. But anyways, Baron Friedrich, he is 25 years old. Very, very young for a Baron. Oh, and actually, I should mention Russian naming conventions. The first name is actually their surname. The second name is their actual name that you would call them, and the third name is based off their father. It's a patrilineage name, kind of like how Nordic countries have, Karlsson or Magnusdottir, right? If you're familiar with Nordic names, you probably get what I'm going with. If you're not, then yeah, that's probably flown over your head. Anyway, so this Baron, young 25-year-old man, he has only been the Baron for a few months now. Since March of this year. He hasn't had to do a lot yet, but we'll get to see how he grows in the later coming months. Baron Friedrich has pretty much been running things in town. His father, Mikhail, in other words, Mikhailovich, Mikhail, died of mysterious unknown causes. It was an illness that eventually got him, and he died fairly young for a Baron at the age of 48, which is... The average life expectancy at the time for Russians was 30 years of age, and though it was weighed down by infant mortality, dying at 48 is kind of okay. Though for royalty, that's a bit of an issue. 60 and beyond was a lot more common. The one doctor he had closest to him was his own wife, Sarah. Sarah was actually a doctor. She was also nobility to the city of Bisk, which isn't too far away from Kinaspol. Friedrich actually does have other siblings. They're not important to the story yet, we'll come to that. He's not an only child, he's just the eldest. Once the news broke, there was rumors floating around that Friedrich might have poisoned his father. Though there's no evidence either way, most people pushed this rumor aside since the two had at least publicly, they had a very good relationship, despite some of the differences they had, especially with Friedrich's drinking, constant partying and mingling with the peasantry. The other theories that have been floating around are all sort of inconclusive. No one really knows why he died. Like I said before, Frederick often mingles with and talks with the peasantry of Kinaspol. Sarah doesn't have a lot of time right now. She's quite obsessive over the death of her late husband, and just tolerates the lifestyle that Frederick chooses to take. The people of Kinaspol do actually love Frederick's company, and they, love him in general. They think he's a great guy, and a great leader, a great baron. So, no one's going to throw a coup on him anytime soon. That being said, he's very well liked. He's a very outgoing, very positive person, and one thing that while he didn't particularly make the racetrack or start the races, he has been a massive fan of them. And he loves throwing races, he loves throwing games and festivals. This is his favorite time of year. And this is his first time being Baron of Kinaspol, and so he's going all out trying to get people to come into the little dinky town across the lake. He's throwing all big festivals, he's spreading the word out, he's getting merchants into town, he's getting even other peasants and nobles to come into town to attend, watch all the games. There's horse racing, there's going to be some football, there's going to be some mob rugby, there's going to be some gambling games, there's going to be some music, all sorts of things. So there's going to be a harvest festival as well next month, that's coming up, and that's been planned already. And Frederick is the kind of person, while he is an absolute... He's very much a sanguine, very much a debaucherous kind of guy. He is someone who also knows how to plan a really good party, so it's not like he's useless either. He's not a useless drunk. He gets drunk because he plans to get drunk, and he makes sure everything falls into place for him to be pissed out of his mind. And with most of the racetrack there done, I'm going to introduce a little bit of a segment, encouraging you all to comment a little bit down below. And, while you're there, like and subscribe as well, why don't you? But anyways, so between this episode and the next one, there's going to be a race between 5 horses: Little Joe, Noir, Comet, Rooster, and Charger. In the comments below, if you vote on one of those horses, you can only vote for one to win the race. You can also add, on top of that, something you'd like to see happen in the series. Perhaps you want a character to be introduced. Maybe you want to have a question answered about something in the town, some events that might be going on around the world. Maybe you want a little check-in on some characters, or maybe you want an event to happen, like maybe a little rebellion, maybe a famine even. That might be really interesting. Maybe you want to see the population explode or something. Maybe you just want to see the world burn. Either way, I will do my best to replicate it and keep the series going. I'm obviously not going to take something silly like, oh, just nuke the entire place, or, oh yeah, just have everyone disappear. Like, okay, I'm not going to take those seriously. But if you do type something serious that you're curious about, just remember it's 1886, so that they're not gonna have a Lamborghini. But maybe on that side of things, maybe you want to see the first few cars rock up into Kinaspol. That would be interesting. While that's planned for much later, maybe you want to see it earlier. And I mean, I can definitely give a really good reason for why. I will work it into the story. You just provide it. Just, keep it sensible. Keep it sensible. Okay. Alright, I think we can go back to the normal video now. So this here is pretty much what the festival grounds, the racetrack grounds would look like outside of festival season. So, during winter, summer, spring usually. We're going to change it up so it's a bit more suitable for foreigners, tourists and whatnot coming in, and also to host it all. And right here, we're just building the stables. One of the other places to keep horses, you know, train horses, all that. You can definitely see the graveyard in the background there. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten it. I've just moved it around, and it's more or less. We'll come to it later in the episode. Don't worry about that. Yeah. So stables are pretty simple. It's where, you know, you raise horses, where you breed horses. It's where you keep them safe and you tend for them. And usually they need a lot more space than this. Even proportionally, that you'd need a lot more space for them. Though the horses often get taken out of this little pen area and into the racetrack or into the areas around. They see a lot of usage, so a lot of their exercise comes with their work. Modern stables tend to be larger because horses don't have to do nearly as much as they have to in these times. You know, pulling carts as you've seen around town, ferrying people between locations and whatnot. They're essentially the medieval cars. And that's actually how the game treats them. If you've seen or even heard in cinematics, they make car sounds because Cities Skylines. And with fear of repeating myself constantly, I think it's a good time now to sort of go away from talking about the build. You can see it all in the background. If you do see anything like, you know, those houses there that I just put some beam poles at, that's gonna come later. I've recorded everything I built. Don't worry, you'll see it. And that's part of the thesis, I guess, of the show, the episodes, is that I show everything. I don't hide anything. Well, I don't hide the builds, is what I mean. Like, you know, I'm gonna hide all the background work, you know, downloading workshop stuff. I'm gonna hide that stuff because that's just boring. But to get away from all of that, I'm gonna talk about sort of the future of the channel, future of my own life, and how things might change. When I started the series, uploads were way more frequent, and while the quality, I would say, hasn't changed since then in any meaningfully or significant way, the recording length and the length of the episodes hasn't changed in a long way or anything like that. The reason why the upload frequency has changed and will stay changed is that life balance, you know, work-life balance, stuff like that. I have a job outside of this, obviously, you know, to pay the bills and all that. But I'm working on getting a new job, and I'll be moving. So there might be a period of time where I will be a little bit absent. There might be a short gap between uploads. I can't make a bunch of episodes and, you know, send them out beforehand. It's just not something I'm capable of doing right now with my limited faculty, time, etc. So that's something that will be coming up, and I know YouTube's algorithm doesn't like it, but I mean, this is the first series I've gotten to like 5 episodes with, and this isn't my first Cities Skylines series, I guess. It kind of is, because the first one I ever didn't even go past 1 episode. So yeah, this is actually sort of sticking with me, and I want to keep doing it. And by the way, this thing that I'm drawing up here is the finish line, that it's translated into Cyrillic. If you notice that the translations are wrong, please let me know. But yeah, so a bit of real life there into Ion's life. And before you say anything, that is actually the flag. That's the correct flag, even though this is Russia. This is Imperial Russia, you know, black, yellow, white. But yeah, the upload frequency might change a bit, but I'm planning to have at least 2 videos a fortnight, whether it be 1 each week, or it be 2 in 1 week, none the next, 2 the next week. I'm not 100% sure how that'll go. Maybe I could get 3 or 4 even, if you're lucky. So yeah, that's the future of the series. It's not going away. It'll be paused, and maybe it'll be a little bit slower on the upload. Maybe it'll be a bit quicker. Maybe. But for now, things are going to change. Nothing bad, I assure you. But yeah, we'll get back to the build now. So this little part of the build here is a little additional market that's attached to the horse tracks. A lot of the locals sort of seize the opportunity to sell expensive goods to people coming in and watching the races. So that's what all these stalls are here for. They might be merchants that have come in here to set up shop. The Baron, of course, totally is cool with this. It's a great source of revenue for him and the town, mostly him, which he can run more events with. Currently, Kinaspol's economy, most of it, and in the past, was run off of just exporting goods. But what Mikhail wants... Sorry, not Mikhail. Mikhail is his dad. Friedrich wants to sort of move Kinaspol's economy into a tourist economy, or at least an entertainment economy, where the benefits of entertainment, the excitement, the grandeur, and all that sort of stuff, wants to start running more events, more things for people to do. And while this was often seen as a distraction to peasants, because peasants should be working and not having fun, because fun is something only the rich people can have, apparently. This is the lifestyle that Friedrich wants to lead, and Friedrich knows that the best kind of fun is the fun you have with others. And with that being said, I'm having a lot of fun with you guys. Even though I'd say we're not in the same room and having the same conversation, showing you all this makes this a lot more fun in my eyes. Because this isn't a career. And while I'd love this to be a career, I'm not expecting it to be. This is just going to be fun to do on the side. But this is the end of the build, not the end of the whole build, not the end of the episode. It's just the end of the horse track. The horse track. We'll get a bit of a little cinematic before we switch over to the next build. So stay tuned for a little bit of that, and I'll see you in the next segment. I hope you enjoyed those little cinematics of the horse races. You're probably now wondering what's next? The graveyard's next, that's what. First things first, we're gonna get a little stone wall around, and part of the bluestone inn makes up the wall, so, you know, they don't have to... Might as well just save resources and not build a wall there. And that's exactly what they did. So the rest of the graveyard wall, just going to build it around here. Nice and simple. There usually isn't fences in town. Like I've said plenty of times before, they're usually built to keep animals in and around their property. But a stone wall around a church graveyard is mostly because the church itself, very wealthy, very powerful, they own this plottage of land. It's very important that they keep people from going in and disturbing the grounds. Though, small town, it's not very common for people to go and disturb graves. Though during times like this, they are very much appreciated, as drunken foreigners might stumble into the grounds if there were not a stone wall there. Especially since later on, we're actually going to be building a very commonly used pathway through town, just around this graveyard. But that'll come a little bit later. So this is a very common site in Kinaspol. It's in the very dead center of town. Dead center. And there's also a very major walkway that goes around the graveyard. These graves, while they have crosses on them, that's sort of not lore friendly. It doesn't make a lot of sense, because that's a Christian cross and the people of Kinaspol are Eastern Orthodox. So, yeah. Try to imagine that it's not Christian crosses, but I didn't bother looking for a... I'll be honest, I didn't bother looking for an Eastern Orthodoxy cross. The church doesn't have one on it, so it's as simple as just saying they're not fancy enough to put one on there. Later on, in time, when the population gets larger, they'll definitely want to build another church of some sort, for certain. It's a very small church. It houses the townsfolk, and some more people when they do come into town, because most of the foreigners are Russian that come in. I say foreigners like they're from different countries. I mean foreign as in from across the lake. People from across the lake are practically foreigners here. While they speak the same language, they have a slightly different dialect. And while they do both live in the same kingdom, they are... The people of Kinaspol are fairly removed, which is kind of the reason why Alexander, or at least Alexander's staff, wanted to ratify and put them in the books. But yeah, that was pretty quick. That's the whole build right there, and now you're just having a look at some cinematics. It wasn't a very difficult build, not very hard, and I'm talking over the cinematics here just because we're going to quickly move on to the next section, which is just expanding the houses around Kinaspol. Alright, and finally, the final build of this episode. What I've got going on here on screen right now is that path I mentioned earlier when I was building the church out. This is the path that goes around the church graveyard, and sort of goes around the stable as well. It's also going to meet up and go towards the center of town as well, just over here, once I've done fiddling with that part. Annoyingly, I actually recorded this voiceover just before, but I accidentally muted my mic, so hilariously I was just talking to myself for 10 minutes. Actually, you know what? These whole episodes are me talking to myself for 30 odd minutes, so I'm just annoyed that I had to redo it again. Anyways, so later on I'll make it so that the people can actually use those paths. You have to sort of draw a path over it, so that Cities Skylines know that it's a path. You'll see it later. I'll draw concrete over it and then I'll make it all disappear. That's part of it. I'll explain it if people are interested, but most people that are watching either don't really care or already know how to do it. The build here is just all about adding some new homes, and specifically here, we're going to put 2 of them here. That one, and once we get that one there, just attaching them to barns, and the workers that work in the horse race tracks and the stable would live in those homes. One thing about the current situation in Kinaspol, before as well, actually I should give context, before Kinaspol was pretty poor. Most of the money they actually made, or anyone in town made, was off of merchants coming into town buying stuff. Not very reliable and not very glamorous. There wasn't a lot of coin that came into town. At most, there'd be a few hundred coins, and most of them would be owned by the parent. This month, however, and this season, has seen a huge surge in the coffers. The amount of coin in Kinaspol has dramatically risen. And it's due in part to Frederick's advertisement across the lake and greater areas around Russia, sort of enticing people into coming into Kinaspol for the races, and throwing large events and expanding on the draw that gets merchants and foreign nobility into town, having them spend coin. That's meant that the people in Kinaspol, the inn itself as well, hasn't been able to house these people, and a lot of the residents in town have been renting out spare rooms as temporary sort of accommodation for all of the influx of people. Usually, Kinaspol would at most double in size, and it's more than tripled now in terms of population, I should say, sorry. Usually there's only 100 people around, and as I've said before, there's over 300 people in Kinaspol at this time. Massive influx of people. Usually, 200 was a good number to reach. and this year it's closer to 350. It's huge. For a town this small, it's massive. There's more than twice the population in terms of foreign nobility, merchants, and just tourists in general. There's a lot of wealthy people in town, and they're spending a lot of coin. They're putting it up for gambling at horse races. They're buying some stays at homes, at the inn. They're buying some meals, food. They're buying alcohol. The demand for goods has risen dramatically. The only issue is potentially using too much and not having enough for later. Especially since winter is coming around. If they don't keep enough for themselves to get through winter, they may go through a famine if they're not careful. So there is a weariness to all of this. While there is an upbeat of we're all getting rich, at the same time we also might be selling too much. Because, again, Kinaspol is very remote, and during winter, the lake will freeze over. It won't freeze over entirely, but their part of the lake freezes up, and no one can get to them. Or at least, it's not easy to get to them. So they have to be careful. But with that being said, we're kind of just winding up to the detailing of the last part of the build. You know, we'll be putting some plants in the back, props and stuff like this. Golden Might, I think it is. Oh, YouTube, please do not demonetize with that. I'm saying Phagme, whatever, however you spell it. But they're gonna, yeah, alright, I'm not gonna let YouTube take that from me. I'm gonna, anyways, I'll probably censor that bit, just because. Yeah, so this is pretty much the end of it all. I want to thank you for watching and sticking by, because, I mean, I'm not very consistent with these uploads. I hope to be better, but it's not something I can work on actively, like I said earlier, in terms of, like, work-life balance and all that. But I'm not going to stop uploading, so I hope you're really enthralled by the series. You want to watch the next episode, because it is coming. It may not be soon, but it will be coming around. So I'll bid you adieu and farewell, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now, and enjoy the cinematics.